I need you to look at this list. NVIDIA signed it. Google signed it. Microsoft signed it. Meta signed it. Amazon signed it. And somehow, even OpenAI signed it. This is the letter titled Open Weights and American AI Leadership. It is a direct argument that open weight AI is essential for competition, innovation, security, customer control, and America's position in the AI era. The list of supporters is enormous. It stretches across model companies, chip companies, cloud providers, software companies, startups, and open source organizations. But one name is conspicuously missing: Anthropic. And honestly, I am very disappointed. Anthropic is not refusing to sign some unhinged manifesto. That manifesto does not demand dumping every dangerous frontier model online without testing or responsibility. That is not what this letter says. The letter explicitly admits that open weights carry real and distinct risks. Anthropic also says it has never advocated for a blanket ban. It agrees that open weights expand access to the AI economy. It agrees they can strengthen competition. It agrees they give customers greater control. So what exactly are we doing here? This is bigger than one company and one signature. This is a fight over who gets to control what may become the most important technology in the world. Do we build an AI economy that distributes intelligence across companies, universities, researchers, public institutions, and ordinary users? Or do a few closed labs decide access, cost, permission, and changing rules? I know which future I want. Today, I'll explain why open is better in almost every case, and why the safety argument is much weaker than Anthropic makes it sound. NVIDIA, Google, OpenAI, and every other signer deserve credit for taking the better side of this fight. Anthropic did not. First, a quick definition, because people use open source and open weights interchangeably, even though they are not always exactly the same thing. That distinction matters, so keep it in mind. The letter defines open weight models as AI models that people can download, inspect, modify, and run on their own infrastructure. A fully open source model can go further. It may include the data, training tools, and materials needed to recreate the model. NVIDIA has released models in that fuller sense as well. For this conversation, the critical issue is access to the weight. Can you possess the model, adapt it, and choose where it runs? Or do you only get temporary access through one company's servers? That difference is massive. With a closed model, you are renting intelligence. The provider controls the model, access, price, terms, and interface. If those rules change or your use is rejected, you do not own the capability. You are locked outside. Open weights change that. You can run, adapt, evaluate, and move the model yourself. You can build without asking one company for permanent permission. That is not a minor technical preference. That is the difference between an ecosystem and a game. The letter begins with the history of open source software. Early open source pioneers challenged the idea that software could advance only when companies tightly controlled their code. The result was a shared foundation that now supports much of the internet and systems used by major companies, the United States military, and federal agencies. The point is not that AI is identical to ordinary software. It is not. Training an advanced model can require enormous investment. The economics are much harder. But the principle still matters. Shared foundations allow more people to build. And that is exactly what open weights do. A startup can build on an advanced model without raising enough money to train one. A university can study it without paying frontier prices. A business can use a smaller model for everyday work and save frontier capability for hard problems. Not every task needs the biggest model on Earth. If a business or developer can match the right model to the right job and cost, AI becomes usable across far more of society. You are no longer forced to buy the maximum level of intelligence for every tiny task just because one provider controls the menu. Then there is competition. Open weights create competition at the model layer, but the effects spread through the entire AI stack. Chip companies compete. Cloud and data center providers compete. Infrastructure companies compete. Application developers get more options. Businesses can switch models rather than rebuild everything around one provider. More options put pressure on prices. Greater efficiency expands use. More usage creates more demand for chips, infrastructure, tools, and applications. The value does not disappear. It spreads across the ecosystem. And yes, that is very good for NVIDIA. NVIDIA benefits when more models are trained, when more models are hosted, and when more AI applications are used. More AI generally means more demand for compute. NVIDIA is not signing this letter out of pure charity, but I genuinely do not care. A company having an economic incentive does not make its argument wrong. NVIDIA may make more money because thousands of businesses can build on open models. That is healthier than a few labs capturing nearly all the value by restricting access. And NVIDIA is not alone. Google signed, Microsoft signed, Meta signed, Amazon signed. Most importantly, OpenAI signed. OpenAI is a leading closed model provider. It values frontier capability and paid access. Yet it still backed the argument that the world needs a strong open weight ecosystem. That matters. It shows this is not simply open model companies attacking closed model companies. It recognizes that both can exist and that closed models should not become the only game in town. Then there is customer control, which is impossible to dismiss. When an organization builds knowledge, workflows, and specialized capability around AI, it does not want all of that value trapped inside one provider. It does not want to wake up one morning and discover that the price changed, the terms changed, or the model it depended on was removed. That risk is not theoretical. Open weights let organizations control their data, adapt models, and deploy them wherever their requirements demand. They can also preserve the capabilities they build over time. For many users, local deployment can also mean greater privacy because their data does not have to leave their own system. Access, competition, lower costs, adaptability, privacy, less lock-in, more control. This is not some niche ideology for people who enjoy downloading models onto oversized computers. It is an economic and technological foundation. And I do not want the future of intelligence reduced to 2 websites and a monthly subscription. Now, there is a real problem here, and the research does not pretend otherwise. Building advanced AI models is brutally expensive. That is the uncomfortable business model problem. A closed model company can sell access to intelligence, generate revenue, and pour that revenue into more compute, researchers, and better models. That advantage compounds over time. An open weight company spends the money to build the model and then gives other businesses the ability to use it. Those other businesses can focus only on hosting, infrastructure, or applications without paying the original cost of model development. So who funds the next great open model? That question is unresolved. NVIDIA can justify major investment because it benefits from the growth of the entire AI ecosystem. Other companies may build applications or infrastructure around the models. Governments can expand access to compute and shared training assets. But the business model is undeniably harder. Here is what I refuse to accept, though. The fact that openness is difficult does not mean closed control is desirable. If open weights put pressure on the margins of model providers, those providers will have to compete somewhere else. They can build better applications. They can create a better user experience. They can offer memory, tools, infrastructure, support, and services. They can move up the stack and give people a reason to pay beyond simply controlling access to intelligence. Good. That is exactly what competition is supposed to do. Claude can still be an excellent product. ChatGPT can still be an excellent product. Closed frontier models can still exist. Open weights do not require those companies to disappear. They require them to win customers by building something people choose, not by making alternatives impossible. Now let's give Anthropic the strongest possible version of its argument. Once model weights are released, they cannot be taken back. Someone can remove safeguards. Modified versions can become difficult to trace. A bad actor does not have to pass through the original developer's filters. And if a released model is misused, responsibility can become unclear. Is the developer responsible? The company hosting it? The application? The person using it? These are real concerns. Anthropic also worries about powerful AI being used for cyber attacks, biological attacks, or by Titan governments. It argues that open weight models may present higher risk because their use is harder to monitor and their safeguards are harder to enforce. That is the core warning. Releasing powerful weights is not risk-free, and the letter never claims otherwise. It clearly says open weights carry real and distinct risks. I take that seriously. And I agree with the basic idea that sufficiently capable models should face serious safety testing before release, open or closed. But the details matter. What counts as sufficiently capable? What testing is required? How expensive is it? And can startups, universities, or independent labs comply? Or does the process become a moat only the richest companies can cross? Safety testing should measure real capability and real risk. It should not become a luxury fee for permission to compete with Anthropic. And this is where Anthropic loses me. Anthropic's argument keeps drifting from this is dangerous toward this is outside our control. Those are not the same statement. A closed model is not automatically safe just because one company controls the API. Closed models can be breached, misused, or fail invisibly. Their safeguards can be bypassed. They can also refuse legitimate defensive work because a cyber defender's request can look similar to an attacker's request. The research describes that kind of failure during an incident involving Hugging Face. Closed systems reportedly blocked essential defensive analysis. An unrestricted open weight model helped investigate and contain the problem. That example does not prove every open model is safe. It proves something more important. Closed access is not a magical safety shield. Sometimes the guardrail that blocks an attacker also blocks the defense. When very few providers control capability, we create single points of failure. Then we must trust their teams to find vulnerabilities and measure every risk. We must trust them to write safeguards and respond fast. I do not want a trust me, we handled it AI era. Open weights let a larger community inspect model behavior, benchmark it, red team it, find vulnerabilities, and improve defensive tools. More qualified eyes do not guarantee perfect security, But secrecy does not guarantee it either. The letter's position is not that openness magically removes danger. Openness can be a path to safety. Defenders need comparable capabilities, and independent researchers must test the systems society relies on. There is also a practical point. Possessing weights and operating frontier scale capability are not the same thing. Powerful models require enormous compute. Smaller models may run locally, but the largest capabilities require major cloud and data center infrastructure. That means there can still be accountability at the infrastructure and deployment layers. Open weights do not erase every possible control. They distribute control across more than one company. And yes, some capabilities may be dangerous enough that they should not be released before rigorous testing. I am comfortable saying that. But that is a capability-based argument. It is not an argument that closed is good and open is bad. Test the model. Measure the actual dangers. Apply rules to demonstrated harms. Do not decide in advance that the system, Anthropic, controls is safe and the system Anthropic does not control is dangerous. Because control is not safety. Sometimes control is just control. That distinction is the heart of this debate, and I refuse to blur it just because doing so sounds convenient. Anthropic says it has never advocated for a blanket ban on open weight models. Fine, I accept that statement. Anthropic says safe open weight models are a public good. It admits they expand access, strengthen competition, and give customers control. Again, fine, we agree. But that makes the refusal to sign this letter even more frustrating. The letter does not deny danger. It says the answer to danger is not prohibition. It calls for access to compute, shared data sets and tools, evaluation frameworks, and a plural frontier. It also calls for safeguards tied to real harm. That is balanced. Frankly, it may be more balanced than I am. Anthropic disagrees with the idea that open weights necessarily make safeguards easier to develop, or that broad access necessarily helps defenders more than attackers. That is a legitimate amok question, but not necessarily is doing an incredible amount of work. Nothing in security always benefits defenders, and nothing in AI is risk-free. So which structure gives society the best overall chance? Which structure supports innovation, competition, inspection, adaptation, and defense while avoiding permanent power for a few labs? For me, I think the answer is overwhelmingly open. If Anthropic genuinely supports open weights in safe cases, it should help build the testing, infrastructure, and standards that make more releases possible. It should not stand outside the broadest pro-open coalition in AI and then act surprised when people question its priorities. You cannot publicly emphasize why open weights are uniquely frightening, then refuse to sign a measured letter supporting it. And you cannot hide behind the claim that you never asked for a blanket ban. Technically correct is not the same thing as reassuring. That defense is nowhere near enough. Then we get to destilling. Destilling sounds sinister, but the basic technique is not inherently sinister. One model's outputs can be used to help train, improve, evaluate, or validate another. It can produce smaller, cheaper, more efficient systems. The letter calls destilling a legitimate, widely used model development technique. But not every act under that label is acceptable. The letter draws a clear line between legitimate development and unlawful efforts to extract value from closed models. It says actual misappropriation should be addressed through targeted legal and commercial framework. I agree. If an operation violates enforceable terms or the law, address that operation. If a company is hiding industrial-scale extraction, investigate it. Use targeted rules, not panic. Use customer verification enforcement, and targeted rules. What you should not do is take an allegation of misconduct and use it to poison the entire idea of open weights. Anthropic's focus on industrial-scale distilling makes its position look less like a neutral safety principle. It looks more like anger that competitors can close the gap. Maybe Anthropic sincerely believes every word of its safety case. The first transcript explicitly gives it that benefit of the doubt, and I will too. But intent is not the only thing that matters. Effects matter. If the solution raises the cost of model development so high that only Anthropic and a few peers can comply, power becomes more concentrated. If legitimate distilling gets rhetorically blended with theft, a useful development technique becomes politically toxic. That confusion would damage the entire open ecosystem for everyone. If Chinese open weight models are banned in the United States, while the rest of the world keeps using them, America risks isolating itself instead of competing. The stronger response is to build better American open weight models, support the researchers, expand access to compute, invest in shared tools and evaluations. Keep advanced chips away from actors the government has decided should not receive them, if that is the policy. Pursue actual unlawful extraction with targeted enforcement. But do not cripple an entire open ecosystem because a closed lab dislikes how quickly competitors are improving. That is not leadership. Here is my position. Open weights are not automatically safe, and neither are closed models. That distinction matters. Powerful models should be tested by what they can actually do, not labeled safe or dangerous by who controls the server. Misappropriation should be addressed directly. Legitimate distilling should not be treated as theft by default. Those are not the same thing. Startups and researchers should not be buried under a safety regime designed for companies with billions of dollars and enormous legal teams. And openness should be the default direction of travel, because open weights expand access. They increase competition. They reduce lock-in. They let organizations protect their data and preserve what they build. They give independent researchers the ability to inspect important systems. They give defenders access to capable tools. They spread the value of AI across chips, clouds, infrastructure, applications, businesses, universities, and public institutions. Most importantly, open weights keep intelligence from belonging to a tiny club. That is why I applaud NVIDIA for signing this letter. Yes, NVIDIA benefits. Its incentive is obvious. The position is still right. I applaud Google for signing it. I applaud OpenAI for signing. A closed model leader supporting an open ecosystem shows exactly the maturity this industry needs. Anthropic, I am genuinely disappointed. You say you do not want a ban, and you admit the benefits. You agree with much of the letter. Yet when the industry defended an open weight future, your name was missing. Safety deserves serious work, testing, evidence, and targeted rules for actual harms. What it does not deserve is to become a polite word for keeping intelligence under the control of a few companies. Anthropic makes an extremely powerful model. That does not mean Anthropic should get an extremely powerful position over the future of AI. The letter imagines open weight AI expanding opportunity, competition, leadership, safety, and broadly shared benefits. That future is worth building. NVIDIA signed, Google signed, OpenAI signed. Anthropic should sign too. Let me know where you land. Are Anthropic's concerns enough to justify its refusal? Or is the company confusing safety with control? And if you want more breakdowns of the battles shaping AI before they shape all of us, subscribe. Tell me what you think. I'll see you in the next one.